Welcome to Adult Education and Family Literacy Week and the Command Center, hosted by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education. I am so privileged and honored to have a wonderful guest with us today. Nicole Klues, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today, Jeff?
I'm doing great. Nicole is with Safal Partners, and she's going to tell about all the awesomeness of Safal. So I'd be remiss, and I have to start this off with a disclaimer. I haven't done this yet, but the disclaimer is that I've done some work with Safal and continue to do some work with them, and they're just a remarkable organization. But we're going to dig deep into some stuff on adult, and you're working on some great projects. I can't wait to get into them. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and a little bit about Safal Partners?
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff. So, Safal Partners is a consulting firm, and we focus on workforce development in addition to education. And our motto at Safal Partners is turning passions into outcomes. And that really resonated with me because I started my career out as an adult education instructor. And I have passion for the field, and right now, in my current role, I get to support 2 projects directly impacting the adult education field. The first one is the Center of Excellence project, and that is sponsored by the Department of Labor. And what the Center of Excellence project does is it focuses on providing technical assistance to the entire country, but through my role, adult education, to really work to align workforce and education to create more opportunities for registered apprenticeship pathways to employment. We all know adult learners. What's the next step? Employment, upward mobility. So that's one project I'm really excited about. And another one is Digital Resiliency in the American Workforce project. And excited to talk about that too. That one is sponsored by OCTAE, and we work collaboratively with JFF in addition to World Education.
All right, let's kick off the first one. So first of all, tell us what's Safal Partners? What do they primarily do?
So Safal Partners is a consulting firm, and we focus on education projects and workforce development projects. So we have projects that span from the Department of Labor, working with Office of Apprenticeship for Technical Assistance. We've done, my previous project was with Job Corps. How do we leverage technology to enhance equity and instruction, especially during the pandemic and beyond in this paradigm shift? There are also various projects for Workforce GPS. Also on the education side, working with Texas Education Agency, doing some great curriculum work and some engagement work around the state of Texas, and of course professional development projects. So we have our hand in a lot of education and a lot of workforce development, but the real confluence is how do we merge the two to accelerate these opportunities?
Yeah, so for the longest time, I felt that the Department of Education and Department of Labor worked in their silos. And for the last few years, they've been getting it. Like, they realize that, if we're going to get people into good jobs, we got to get them smarter, right? We got to get them skill developed. I want to go all the way back because you said something at the very beginning that that took me. You were an educator.
Yep.
You started as a teacher.
Yes.
So all you teachers out there that are listening, I want you to remember, and I want you to think of Nicole when maybe the classroom you're getting a little tired and you want to do something productive and move forward and move the ball forward in adult education. That there are lanes to go, and it's not just about being in the classroom, but it's also about being an advocate and working in a consulting company where maybe you can really make change happen, and that's by some of the great programs that you do. The Center for Excellence, tell us a little bit, what is it, so that we can understand, and then how can we get connected to it?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So the Center of Excellence, like I said, it's sponsored by the Department of Labor. And for the Center of Excellence, it rolled out last year, and we have the opportunity to partner with COABE, is one of our 5 national partners. And like I said, the goal is to really provide various technical assistance resources to support educators, to support high schools, to support the field in creating more apprenticeship pathways. Sometimes when people think apprenticeship, they think carpentry, plumbing, those sorts of things, which are great, but how do we reskill, upskill in other fields, cybersecurity? Tennessee right now is the first state doing teacher prep apprenticeship.
Wow.
We got to rethink education, and I think this is the paradigm shift we're in right now, with infusing technology with education and how we teach, and also in terms of opening up other pathways via apprenticeship for students. And tech is also a part of that, because you don't necessarily, we all know you don't have to be face-to-face to learn, but you have to have those digital skills, digital literacy, and access to be able to.
Yeah, so the apprenticeship piece, I think it causes some trepidation for a lot of people. They're reluctant to jump in the pool. But when I look at apprenticeships and the pre-apprenticeship work that even we do and that I see across the country, one of the things that's so important is the recognition that you're actually training them, you're giving them a skill set that employers need, right? And you're getting them into the workforce that way. So the employers are meeting directly. I know we have some partners with some great companies. We recently just did one with LabCorp for phlebotomy. Same kind of thing where you're really giving people a career opportunity and they're embedded in the job, so they're learning those skills that the employer wants. Apprenticeships are a thing I think are one of the most underutilized tools in our country. How can they, if you are an employer and you want to engage, what's the best really way of getting that information about apprenticeships and how to kind of find that talent pool that's out there?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I don't know how I can share the website, because I can give you the website, but I don't know if I can share it, like ping it out for people to see. But on the Center of Excellence website, there's a lot of really great resources on how to get started and also how to partner with the Center of Excellence, not only to inform TA resources needed, but to help guide and guide the development and test things out as things roll out. So I think starting there would be a really great place to get that support, because we've talked to, again, being an educator and then working with adult education, and we all know around the country there's different local needs.
Right.
What works here in DC might not work in another country. Well, it might not work in another country, it might, but it might not work in another state. So how do we create resources that can be turnkeyed and then leveraged to meet the needs of the local economy? And I think about apprenticeship sometimes with reverse engineering, because what is the demand? What is the skill needed now? And how do we back map that to the programs and the instruction to prepare that pathway for adult students?
No, that's a great point. And I encourage all adult programs that are out there, education programs, to really think about building the apprenticeship model into the work that you do and making it part. It definitely will, to me, it's one of those key factors of getting men and women out of poverty. Because if you can give them that education piece, it's sort of like the IET model, that integrated educational training, where you're putting the fraction piece with the carpentry piece and you blend it together, and it just makes so much sense, and you add some workforce into it, and it's a win for everybody. You mentioned digital literacy, and I want to talk a minute or two about that. The Digital Equity Act was passed as part of the infrastructure bill, and we're in this planning phase nationally of what's going to be coming down the pike. Can you tell us a little about the work you're doing with the digital access and digital equity?
Yeah, absolutely. But first of all, I really want to say something really quick about all
Sure.
the great IET work.
Yeah.
And I know Michelle Carson from Safal has led that, and I know, Jeff, you've leveraged your skill sets on the project as well. But what we talked about in terms of the Center of Excellence and providing the technical assistance for the adult ed field is how do we speak the same language as in IET to create this framework? Because as educators, we all know there's some things that are the same, but the semantics is different, right?
Yeah.
I worked at DC Public Schools for 6 years, and I'll never forget, I went to this one school, and this woman had been there for 25 years. And when I was talking about this new initiative, she's like, everybody wants to name their own baby. She's like, that was like 8 years ago. But I say this to say, how can we speak the same language to build upon that momentum so it's not something else? Adult educators have so much on their plates already.
Yeah, and
So
that's...
to plug that before I...
No, and that's an important plug, and it's also one of the reasons why we're here for Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, is to really raise that voice so that legislators and others around the country, really people understand some of the challenges that our educators go through, and also the challenges of our students. We've had a lot of students on this week that have had tremendous success stories and have really changed their lives because of a high school equivalency program they've went through or a training program they've gotten. So that's super important. But you're not getting away, because I just gave you a softball on the Digital Literacy Act and Digital Equity Act. So I'm curious about the great work you guys are doing in the digital front.
Yeah, so one of the projects Safal's partnering with World Ed and JFF on is, like I said, the Digital Resiliency and the American Workforce Project. And really, how do we enhance access and equity in this country and really provide those skills for students and educators? We saw this huge paradigm shift during COVID, and it's not teaching here, technology here. And people during COVID were creative, resilient. I mean, we saw so many innovative things. But now that we're in this landscape, how do we merge the two to enhance access and outcomes? But you can't have that without equity.
Right.
And you can't have that without building up self-confidence, self-efficacy to get there. So that's all part of it. So what the DRAW project does, that's the acronym. We love our acronyms. What the DRAW project does is last year we did a landscape scan of the field. What's working? What resources are out there? What are those gaps? And once we've identified the gaps, and the landscape scan is published, it just was actually released September 1st or August 31st. So it's
Wow.
publicly available.
Okay.
So I also share that information as well. But the next phase is, now that we've identified these gaps and the need, is building professional development resources for educators and for students. And we all know, as educators out there, you want something you can use tomorrow or maybe this afternoon in class. So with these professional development resources, we're approaching it two ways. The first is, if you want to, you can take a self-assessment and have a pathway on things that you want help with. Maybe it's enhancing instructional skills, leveraging digital programming, maybe it's assessments, maybe it's leveraging more resources for digital equity. So you can have a learning pathway, or you just need something to use tomorrow.
Right.
On ESL or some other resource that you can go and get and then turnkey tomorrow. So that's really the approach, to build competency, but also something that can be turnkey leveraged.
So that's so important to understand. And, we hear this often from educators that, the challenge is, well, first of all, educators, they're not making in the millions of dollars, right? Often really underpaid and overworked, spending a lot of time. And a lot of educators, through their passion, they're doing work where, it's not just about the classroom, it's about helping people navigate life. And that's part of their job, which who knows how you pay for that and compensate them. But they're there and they're doing this work. But having those resources and those tools are so important. And that's one of the things that attracted me when I first got involved with COAPE, was the tremendous amount of resources that they had available to them that people could leverage. And it sounds like that Safal Partners is doing the same kind of thing. And having those tools, which are turnkey, are so important. If an educator is listening today and they wanted to access some of those tools, how would they go about getting them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the DRAW project, we just published the Links Landscape Scan, and then we're going to be piloting some of these PD products I talked about. They're currently in development right now. We have some wonderful subject matter experts, many a part of COABE, working on that, and then we're working to digitize those and make those accessible. So we're going to pilot those in the spring, and then they'll be open to everybody.
Love it.
So you have to wait, but it's we all know that there's a lot of stuff out there. You can Google, you can YouTube, but do we know it's high quality? Do
Right.
we know it's meaningful? Do we know it's going to impact outcomes? And I think that, like technology, we all know we can leverage it in a way to make things more accessible. So adult educators that have so much on their plates can focus on their students. Like, who's in front of me? How can I differentiate between you, Jeff, and maybe Sharon over here? And I have those resources to be able to focus more of my time doing that when we're face-to-face or in an online Zoom or Teams. But I think at the same time, there's so much access out there, it's ensuring that you're getting high-quality materials to do that.
Yeah, so super important, and we're looking forward to that. Certainly hope that it will get through the Links network. I do moderate for Links.
It will be on Links, and that's where our DRAW webpage is right now. So
Awesome.
it's going to be on Links, and actually that's where we're building all the trainings.
Yeah, so if you're not part of Links, get onto Links. It's links.ed.gov. And if for a special bonus to me, you can join the community of practice for correctional and reentry education. But there's some great communities of practice on there, from mathematics to reading to career pathways, and we're adding an equity. Diversity, equity, and inclusion section coming up. So a lot of great communities that you can really get the resources and tools, and all these things are, I call them free 95. They don't cost you anything. You just jump on and you make them all available. So looking forward to that. So we're here really celebrating Adult Education and Family Literacy Week and the awesomeness of our teachers and students and people like yourself that are really changing the way things, the education perspective in our country. You have an opportunity now, and you have some voice. And the voice today is to the educators, in particular the educators that are out there that may be saying, I'm a little frustrated, and I need to know, what should I be doing, what messaging should I be, and who should I be talking to advance adult education in our country. What would you say to them?
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm not sure. Should I look right? Hi, you all.
There you go.
First of all, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. The work you do is amazing. It's not only, as Jeff, you just talked about, it's not only instruction and supporting students, but there's so many other aspects of the mentoring, and you're changing a family's life at many times. And it's not your typical 8 to 5 or whatever that looks like, and you know, always going above and beyond in that resiliency and grit. But I think, you know, in terms of the resources, I think one of the things that sticks out that Jeff talked about is what resources already exist that are high quality, and how do you build that network? Because we're in a moment of time as there's a lot of great resources out there, and there's also not so great resources out there. But how can you capitalize on that to then leverage your time more impactfully to support students? Maybe it's the social emotional portions or other things you need to do in the classroom to support each student differently. And I think too, as you know, an educator, is take care of yourself. Like it's that saying, and I thought it was so cheesy back in the day. It's just put your oxygen mask on first. And some people think I can't because I have this to do and this to do and this deadline and this exam and all these things. But really just focusing on your social emotional learning as well, and like what brings you can fill your cup. And maybe it's, you know, getting out for a walk, maybe it's a yoga class, maybe it's a little bit of mindfulness. But I think how educators can fill their cups is so important, and then also build community, because there's communities out there that can provide resources, so people aren't starting from scratch or creating things where they could leverage their time in a different way, because time is the most precious gift, right? And it's how do we maximize
That is just super advice, and I love that analogy. And I'm going to be thinking of that oxygen mask throughout the day, if not weeks and months ahead, because too often we get all caught up in just everything we do, and we forget about ourselves. And it's really, for especially people that are passionate about the work they do, and educators, and students as well, to take a step back and, you know, and appreciate your awesomeness and the fact that you're in the classroom and you're making strides. Even we had a number of ESL students on over the course of the past few days, sharing their stories. Legislation and legislators, you know, one of the frustrations with people that are passionate about this work, like you and I and Sharon and the whole COABE team, is that legislation is out there and takes time sometimes, and there's a frustration in moving the ball forward. So we want to impress upon legislators at all levels, from the mayor level and the local levels all the way up, state level to federal level. But what message should they really be hearing? Is it a matter of more funding? Is it what are the things that they need to have their eyes on as they look at legislation?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And one of the things I was going to say when I was talking to you all is the ability to get involved locally. Like, that has a ripple effect locally up to federally. But to answer your question specifically, I think to legislatures or legislators, whether it's, again, local, state, federal, this is not only a moral imperative, but an economic imperative. This needs to happen. And the statistics show, and I know COABE shared this the other day, that in 5 years, 80% of the workforce is going to need more than a high school diploma. Like, what are we as a country doing about that? And I'm really proud of the work at Safal is working to support more apprenticeship pathways. That's definitely, you know, an avenue, but also adult education field is part of that, and it's critical. 1.5 million students.
Wow.
So it's to me, it's, you know, speaking legislature talk, because, you know, I've been involved in politics. It's to me, it's moral and economic, but spelling out those economic impact to legislators and keeping on the same messaging is so important. But I mean, we need funding, but then also funding needs to turn into outcomes. So how do you map that out specifically?
And that's one of the things that, you know, we're at COABE, we're really looking at is how can we capture data better to really tell the story. And one of the frustrations is we're a large country, and every state often has very different systems in place for tracking data and outcomes, and also the connection between adult education and that workforce piece, and really be able to show that if we give someone the high school education and they go post-secondary or whatever their pathway is to that career, what is the change? What's the economic return on investment for them, and how do you quantify some of that? And I often say the biggest challenge in doing that is the recognition that that it's their children. their 5-year-old or 6-year-old that now goes to school with a full belly, and they're wearing nice clothes, and mom and dad are with them during parent-teacher conference, that are going to continue on to education. It's so generational, and that impact is so long standing. So it's really interesting. We so appreciate the work that Safal Partners is doing, and we're going to go back in a minute before I give you a little bit of a challenge. And here's the challenge. Behind you are a whole bunch of signs. Okay. And what I like you to do is, you can go off camera. I want you to pick a sign out that strikes you. Okay. And you can go look at them all.
I feel like I'm being tested.
You are. There's one of them has a new car, keys on the back of it. Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be very
Next year, we'll do it. But yeah, we at COABE, they've done these wonderful signs, and they all have different slogans on them. I've had them up each day, and I'm curious. Wow. Okay. So Nicole's picked out.
This is a hard choice.
It is a hard choice. There was a bunch of really good ones.
Yes.
So increased digital equity. So I guess that totally makes sense now.
Well, let me say why.
Go
when
ahead.
When you look at equity, it's a catalyst for digital equity. It's a catalyst for the economy,
Yep.
right? It also increases racial equity. So it's all of these things, I feel like, is
Wrapped up in one.
encompassed in that.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. I think that's it definitely especially aligns with the work that you're doing at Safal Partners, and thank you so much. I know that so I've been working with Safal for the last few years. I worked on the IET and Corrections Project. You can just throw it back there. It's fine. I work on the IET and Corrections Project and with your team, and it has been an absolute pleasure. That is a situation where Safal Partners has led the charge to really make a difference in the correctional education and reentry space, and working on it in the field. I've gone out and I provided technical assistance to several states, but been down to West Virginia inside the walls, and got to meet with educators to see the work they were doing, and I was glad that that the project's going to continue to move forward, because the IET concept and model is wonderful, but we continue to be innovative and creative. If you I think it was Einstein that said insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And it just, Safal's getting that, and they're doing some great work. So thank you for everything you're doing. Give it to us again, though. If we wanted to get more information, in particular on the Center for Excellence, where should we be going to?
Okay, so Safal Partners Center of Excellence. Go to safalpartners.com, and there should be a link there.
There you go.
I want to give you I want to hold up a QR code. I should have had a big QR code.
Oh, no worries. I'll tell you what. Send it to us, and we're going to get it up today. Okay? Yeah, the Center for Excellence is on the COABE website, so go to www.coabe.org. There you go. Take Sharon Bonney to chime in here. www.coabe.org. The Center for Excellence is there, and the Draw Project. I'm really excited about that piece of it. So we definitely will share that out, and we'll make sure the report is posted somewhere on the COABE website so people can take a look at it and see it, and we're excited about that moving forward. I wanted to thank you so much, Nicole. It's been a pleasure having you with us today, and we look forward to keep continuing to advance the ball in adult education. And thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you all for all you do. And this week's been amazing, and excited to partner for the rest of the week and partner for the years to come. And y'all, I didn't get the new car key, so
There you go.
whoever's next.
The car comes next year.